Good evening. At this point, I have returned all drafts that were submitted to me, and I have gone over them extensively. So if you see any highlighting, that means there's a problem. It might mean that the comma needs to come off or that there needs to be a comma there. It might mean that there's some pronouns that aren't quite matching up. I have gone through each paper with a fine-tooth comb and highlighted areas of concern and have made several comments. Having said all that, let me say this. I apologize if you get offended by some of my comments. I know sometimes that they come across pretty harsh, especially those of you who got papers sent back today. I kind of just skip around so that people, it's not always the last person on the roster who gets theirs back last or whatever. I try to skip around. And anyway, so those of you who got papers sent back to you, this afternoon, this evening, I apologize. You guys are on the end of the lineup, and the more papers I grade, the more tired I get, maybe the more frustrated and maybe more short with you as far as how I respond. So I apologize for that. I'm sending this video now because we're going to kind of go over some of the common errors that I saw among several papers, and just to kind of help you just get on the right track here. So one thing that really showed up a lot is that you all are wanting to use I, me, my, or you're wanting to use you, which you already know is a big no-no. But for this academic paper, using I, me, and my is not going to be acceptable either. Don't ever, if you're not using I, then you can't use the phrase I believe. That doesn't belong in an academic argument. Keep it third person point of view. So if you're one of those who did use the first person point of view or the second person point of view at any point in your papers, you're going to need to revise your papers for that. Also, something that I see a lot, and here's the reason why. In the way we talk and in a lot of writing, people are getting away from using proper pronoun references. However, in this class, and because our textbook still promotes proper usage, and because it's still the rules, we are going to use proper pronoun usage. And so what I mean by that is you can't mix singular and plural. So words like everyone, someone, person, child, those are singular. And so you can use he, she, him, her with those. If you use plural, like people or citizens, then you can use they, them, their. But don't mix these. Don't say everyone and in the same sentence say they. It is improper. It may be that you have to revise the whole sentence to make it sound right for you, and that's perfectly fine as well. Along the same lines, any kind of city, government, hospital, institution, anything like that, that is not a they. Sometimes it'll be okay to call it an it because these are singular entities. However, maybe you want to also revise that to just get rid of the need to do that. By the way, these are in no particular order. I was just making a list as I read. Okay. So end citations are still a problem. Some people are wanting to put the period, in the quote. Some people are wanting to put the parentheses inside the quotation mark. No. End citations come after quotes but before period. So look at this example. According to Lois Tyson, patriarchal ideology works to keep women and men in traditional gender roles and thereby maintain male dominance. In the quote, then page number, then period. Along the same lines, we want to put commas inside of quotation marks, especially when we're talking about article titles. So article titles also go in quotation marks. So look at this example. In assessing and addressing faculty morale, cultivating consciousness, empathy, and empowerment, comma before quotation mark. Marie Norman and others review a qualitative study designed to spark meaningful conversation and calls to action among faculty members. That's really not supposed to have that there. Okay. Moving on. Verbs in your paper should be primarily present tense, especially when referring to source material. So anytime you reference an author or an article, it's present tense. And also, if you'll look on page, let's see, 377 in a writer's reference has signal phrases that you should be using for this. As a matter of fact, I know that you've been quizzing on MLA, and you've had several quizzes throughout the semester. Go back and review some of that stuff. It will help you in writing your paper. Okay, when you're quoting a source, if you use a verb right before the quote, then the first word is capitalized. So if you say, Johnson says, or Smith explains, then the first word is going to be capitalized. But if you use the word that, or if you quote William in any other way, then you won't be capitalizing the first word of the quote. So here are two examples. According to the article, the research was based on narrative theory in an effort to... Sorry about that. According to the article, the research was based on narrative theory in an effort to get faculty members to reflect on complex narratives, and this act helps to foster greater consciousness, increased empathy, and more creative approaches to problem solving. So here we have just weaved in the quote into the actual author's sentence here, my sentence. Okay, but we can have this. Wagner Martin posits, that's a verb that you can use, Plath was a feminist. In a broad sense of the term, she never undervalued herself or her work. So here, well, Plath is obviously, you know, proper. It would be capitalized anyway. But we have this verb, then we have the first word. Okay, as this is a research-based argument paper, you must cite credible sources often. There should be at least one cited source per body paragraph. If you don't have a cited source per body paragraph, then what are you writing? This is not a personal essay. This has to be research-based. So anything less may indicate plagiarism on your part, and plagiarism is a serious offense. It could fail you, the whole course for you. So please make sure that you are providing evidence. For starters, you should have evidence in your papers, but that you're also citing that evidence accordingly. Make sure you have the works cited page completed properly. Okay, so this is on the last page of your file, but it's separate from the essay. So maybe your essay ends on page 4. Hit the enter button until you get down to page 5 for your works cited. Formatting issues are still a problem. I mean, most of you have it, but then some of you just don't. All formatting needs to be accurate. At this point in the semester, there are no excuses for not setting the paper up properly. It chaps my hide, to say the least. And do not use any templates of any kind. These are just you should start with a blank Word document. You don't need a template. Okay, look carefully at your structure. Paragraphs must be focused on one main idea, each paragraph. Your topic sentence should indicate what the entire paragraph is about. And then, of course, you're going to make sure that the order of your paragraphs makes sense and adds to the argument. A good way to check this is just to pull out all your topic sentences and, you know, in order, and see if that makes sense. You should be able to start with the thesis and have all of your topic sentences and have a clear understanding of what your paper is about. If you can't do that, that's a problem. If you can't easily make an outline of your own paper, that's a problem. All right, here's a little side note, and these apply to, I mean, I've already mentioned these issues, but just in case anybody wants to change their paper here at the last minute, I'm going to say this to the whole class. Some of you have picked topics of which you feel very strongly, and that is okay, but you have to remember that this is an academic paper. I will not tolerate nastiness. If you start a paper bad-mouthing any sect of persons, you lose the credibility of your argument. Basically, you lose your audience. Remember that your audience for this paper is a general educated one, and so that means it's all types of people, but they are educated and they deserve to have an argument presented to them that has credible sources. So your argument must be based on academic and credible sources. Along the same lines, a few of you are doing some topics where you want to bring in Christianity and the Bible. No matter what your personal beliefs are, the Bible is not considered a credible source. I know that's harsh. I know as a Christian that's just hard to swallow, but it's just not. If this was a different type of class, if you were studying literature basically and you were charged with studying how someone used the Bible, or if this was a literature class and we were studying it for literary purposes, then you would cite the Bible in that way. But be careful about basing any argument on the Bible. Okay, So, of course, there are still linked examples on the draft and on the final. Look at the examples that are provided and study a writer's reference. Please just take advantage of all the resources offered to you. As you can see on the Argument Persuasion Draft assignment, you have all of these linked resources. I recommend specifically Sample MLA Paper and Sample MLA Paper 2 for guidance. Okay, I hope this helps. I really want you all to do well. There are some expectations here, and so, you know, it's the end of Composition 1. Hopefully you can end it successfully and finish your peer review, and then on Sunday all of these will be opened up and you can finish out the final draft, which is due next Saturday, November 17th. Thank you and have a good evening.